Chapter 1. The day you stopped asking why. There was a specific moment in your life when you stopped being curious. You don't remember it. Nobody does. It didn't feel like a moment, but it felt like growing up. But what actually happened, quietly and incrementally, is that the single most powerful trait you were born with slowly got educated, managed, and social pressured out of you. Here's the statistic that stopped me cold. The average child asks around 40,000 questions between the ages of 2 and 5. By the time that same child enters the workforce, the questions have nearly stopped entirely. Not because the world got less interesting, but because asking questions started to feel risky, like it might expose what you didn't know, like it wasn't professional or efficient. Curiosity is not a personality type. It is not something you either have or you don't. It is a muscle. And like every muscle, it responds to training. And today, I want to show you exactly how to train it. Chapter 2. What it actually does to you. Ian Leslie, who wrote the most important book on this topic, simply called Curious, makes a case that research strongly supports. Curious people are measurably smarter, more creative, more successful, and report higher life satisfaction. Not because they're born with better brains, but because curiosity is a self-reinforcing system. The more interested you are, the more you learn. And the more you learn, the more connections you make. The more connections you make, the more capable and creative you become. Psychologist Todd Kashdan found that curiosity has direct, measurable benefits across career performance, relationship depth, emotional resilience, and overall life satisfaction. The curious people don't just happen to have better lives. The curiosity is doing a significant portion of the work. And here's what makes it urgent. It atrophies without use. Every year you spend on autopilot is a year the muscle gets weaker. The good news is rebuilding starts with the moment you decide to. Chapter 3. Get broad before you go deep. David Epstein's book, Range, makes one of the most well-researched arguments in recent nonfiction. The people who make creative breakthroughs, who adapt to change, who build lasting careers, are almost universally people who spend time being broadly curious before they went deep. They collected experiences across wildly different domains. They made connections that specialists couldn't make because specialists only know one field. The practical move: deliberately expand your inputs. Read one book per quarter that has nothing to do with your work. Watch one documentary per month about something you know nothing about. Have one conversation per week with someone whose life looks completely different from yours. Brian Grazer, the Hollywood producer behind A Beautiful Mind and Apollo 13, credits his entire career to what he calls curiosity conversations. Every 2 weeks, for decades, he arranged a meeting with someone from completely outside his world. Scientists, soldiers, artists, politicians. Not to network, just to understand how they think. Those conversations gave him a breadth of human understanding that showed up in everything he made. When did you last deliberately seek out a perspective that had nothing to do with your existing world? If you can't remember, well then that's the first thing to fix. Chapter 4. Ask better questions. Warren Burgess spent most years studying what he calls beautiful questions, and his findings were simple. Most people ask too few questions, and the questions they do ask are too small. His framework is 3 moves. Start with why. Why does this exist the way it does? Why has everyone accepted this as normal? Then move to what if. What if the opposite were true? What if there were a completely different approach? And then move to how. How specifically would we make that happen? That sequence breaks the brain out of accepting things at face value. It's the thinking pattern behind almost every significant innovation, career pivot, and breakthrough you've ever heard about. Pick one thing in your life you've been treating as fixed and run the full sequence on it. Why does it exist this way? What if it didn't have to? How might it look different? Write down what comes up. The answer isn't the point. The quality of engagement is. Chapter 5. Curiosity is how you actually see people. In almost every difficult conversation, every conflict, every relationship that has become distant, the root cause is the same. One or both people stopped being genuinely curious about the other person. They stopped asking questions. They started listening to respond and rather than to understand. Curiosity in a relationship is not a soft skill, it is the skill. The practice is simple. In your next difficult conversation, commit to asking 3 genuine questions before you say anything about your own position. What made you see it that way? What matters most to you here? What am I missing? And then actually listen. People who feel genuinely heard become dramatically more open and more trusting almost immediately. Curiosity doesn't just make you more interesting. It makes the people around you feel more seen, and that changes everything. Chapter 6. The Curious Life is the Bigger Life. Brian Grazer titles his book, A Curious Mind, The Secret to a Bigger Life. That word bigger is exactly right. Not louder, not more productive, bigger. More expensive, more full of things you didn't expect and people you didn't plan on, and ideas that changed how you saw everything after. Curious person gets the career pivot right because they've been collecting insights from outside their lane for years. They have better relationships because they never stop being interested in who the other person actually is. They spot the opportunity everyone else misses because they were paying attention to something others dismissed as irrelevant. 3 things. Starting this week, 1 conversation with someone completely outside your world. 1 question you've been afraid to ask, and 1 subject you know nothing about, and spend 30 minutes inside. You were born one of the most curious creatures on Earth. The 40,000 questions are still in you. Start asking.